And today we're talking about a topic that comes up all the time. And it's for those of you out there who are tired all the time. No matter how much you sleep, you're dragging. Or maybe you wake up okay, but then in the afternoon you hit that wall. Do you have to pump yourself up with caffeine or snacks to get through the day? Have you been told over and over again that there's nothing wrong with you, but you still feel exhausted all the time, no matter how much sleep you get? Well, if this is you, it's time to consider the diagnosis of adrenal fatigue. And today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about adrenal fatigue. I'm going to tell you what it is, how to know if you have it, and how to treat it. If you are listening on the podcast, I have an update for you because for the first time ever, I am not wearing the stethoscope that my wife bought me because I'm in a different office. But my hair looks amazing and I'm wearing a Game Changer t shirt. Other than that, you're not missing anything. Wherever you are, follow us on Instagram because we're funny. It's a great place to send us private messages and share this with the people that you love and let them become the game changers in their lives because this topic might really help someone. So just share it, click, share it, let them listen to it. If you don't know who I am, my name is Efrat Lamondre and everyone calls me E, and I invented the new method where we empower people to realize that their symptoms are not in their head. Why? Because you always knew there was a better way. So wherever you are, join the conversation and let's hop in. What is adrenal fatigue? And I always start with a definition. Your adrenal glands, they're these small triangular shaped glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they produce hormones that help regulate your metabolism, your response to stress, your blood pressure, and your immune system. So they're kind of sort of really super important. And one of the most important hormones that they create is cortisol. Cortisol is a steroid hormone that helps us with a lot of things. And you guys know that it's a key factor in how your body responds to stress. So, one of the things that cortisol does besides manage stress is it wakes you up in the morning. When everything works well, the body starts to produce cortisol in the morning. And as soon as you wake up, and as the day goes by, the cortisol slowly and gradually declines until it's time to go to sleep, where cortisol should be at its lowest. And that's the perfect cortisol rhythm, high in the morning, low at night. But you know that cortisol also has other functions. Stress is one of those. And it helps us with what we call our fight or flight response. So when you're stressed, these glands, they pump out hormones, the hormones that you need to get through the day, to get through the stressful event. You know the story, like if a mom sees her kid in danger, she suddenly gets like immense energy. She could lift a car off of her child or high speeds to get her child out of danger. And that is cortisol and adrenaline. So she could, when you have that kind of stress and your adrenaline is pumping and your cortisol is pumping, you can get through things that you probably couldn't do on a regular day. That's your adrenals. They're pumping out cortisol to get you through your stress. So when everything is fine, we don't really have stress. Our kids are not in that kind of danger on a daily level. The adrenals get to be busy doing other things. They get to regulate your hormones, manage your blood pressure. There's a lot of things that they do. And hypothetically, if everything was well, we only use that fight or flight response in time of stress. However, if you're listening to this, you're probably always stressed. The way we live our current lifestyle is a constant state of stress. So the adrenals now, they don't know the difference between the stress of your job, your kids, your school. They don't know that that's not the same stress as, oh my God, my kid's in danger. Let me, move a car out of the way. So they just keep pumping out cortisol to get you through the stress. Initially, you might say, this is great. That's awesome. I'm stressed and then I have this cortisol going, you will feel pumped and ready to go. For those of you listening, do you remember a time in your life when you just got it all done? Like nothing was in your way. You just got it done. No matter what was on your plate was ever expanding and you just got it done. Those were the days when your adrenals were looking good. Nothing can stop you. But what do you think happens after a few years of this constant go, go, go? Your adrenals start saying, listen, you're using too much of this. We were never intended to be used all this time, and we can't keep producing. You start, overdrawing on your cortisol credit, and the funds start running out. You're running out of credit, and you're running out of gas. That's adrenal fatigue. Now, before I continue, I do want to prepare you that a lot of doctors don't believe in it. Similar to leaky gut syndrome, some people, some doctors and healthcare professionals don't recognize adrenal fatigue as a diagnosable condition. That's okay. Don't worry. This talk is not for them, and we're not here to convince anyone of anything. This is called the new method, and I spelled new with a K because when you know, you know. I used to be one of those people who really didn't see it, and now I'm like chin deep in the vortex. So you get there when you get there. That's fine. So, that being said, I always want to caution you against self diagnosis. A lot of the symptoms we discussed today can be a sign of other diseases. Make sure you go to your PCP first. If you're tired and you're sleeping, you just don't have the energy, you first always go to your PCP, get fully evaluated, go to whatever specialist they send you to, do whatever blood tests they tell you to do. Never skip that step. Always rule out disease. And then if everything comes back normal and you're still exhausted and you have no answers, that's when you consider the diagnosis of adrenal fatigue. All right, so the next question is going to be, well, how do I know if I have it? I did all the PCP tests. He or she said everything is normal. I'm still exhausted. How do I know? So first, let's talk about the symptoms. There are symptoms, and let me just pull this up because, of course, I always forget to put these little things on the bottom. So the symptoms of adrenal fatigue include fatigue, tired. You're tired. Even when you have a full night's sleep, you're tired. That's the biggest thing. And then you could also have difficulty getting to sleep, which seems counterintuitive because it's like you're tired, but people with adrenal fatigue have difficulty getting to sleep. They will also have difficulty waking up. Sugar cravings, salt cravings, lack of motivation, like you just can't get that get up and go anymore. Brain fog, afternoon crashes, right? After lunch, you just feel wiped out and you're running for those snacks. That's a classic sign of adrenal fatigue. Decreased libido and increased irritability. These symptoms are not subtle. They can have a significant impact on your day-to-day life. They can make it difficult to get through the day, make it difficult in our careers and our jobs, difficult to maintain relationships. But the good news is that there's so much we can do about it, and we're going to talk about that. But I also want to let you know that adrenal fatigue is not just about getting your energy back. It's about making sure you're optimizing your health, because if you're constantly depleted, if you're constantly asking your adrenals to get you through the day, your body is constantly focusing on stress and it's not focusing on healing and immunity and repair. So if you're dealing with chronic illness, it's really important to address this also, because there's only so much resources in your body, and if it's really focused on stress, it's not going to help you repair the other issues you're dealing with. So fixing adrenal fatigue is important for your overall health and your longevity. It's not just about making you less tired. Okay, so how do you test for it? Let's pull this one up. How do you test for it? So if you go to a conventional medicine, PCP or endo, they generally check cortisol with an early morning blood test. This test is really limited. It's only good if you're looking for extreme cases, kind of the ones that might land you in the ICU. But it won't give you a picture of what's actually going on throughout your day. And blood testing also has another problem in that it's painful and stressful to get blood. So you're getting a blood test and it's painful, and you kind of feel that pain. So there's going to be this natural cortisol surge because of that experience, which can mess with the results. So the way we prefer to test for cortisol is through saliva. There's a 4-point test, there's a 6-point test. I use the 4-point test, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm actually going to show graphs today, which we don't usually do on these podcasts. But don't worry, for those of you who are listening and not watching, I'm going to describe it so you can visualize it as you mow your lawn and wash your dishes. So the point of collecting saliva 4 or 6 times a day is that it can tell you how your cortisol is doing all day, not just first thing in the morning, right? When you're in the exam room getting the blood work done. We want to see your levels all day. When you first wake up, at lunchtime, after lunch, before dinner, at bedtime, we want to see what's happening all day. And we want to be able to graph out the levels because you're going to learn so much about your ability, your energy levels, excuse me, because seasonal allergies in New York. So this is just what's happening. So your numbers might be normal in the morning when you have the most energy, and then they might have a sudden drop in the afternoon, and it would be really helpful to see those numbers. Or you might be one of those people who are dragging all day, but then right before bedtime, you get this crazy surge right before, and you have trouble sleeping. Being able to see that can also help you address insomnia or difficulty falling asleep. Or you may be exhausted all day and there's actually no difference in your energy from when you first wake up to when you go to sleep. It would be nice to see that as well in the graph. That's what this testing is about, to get us a visual, to get the numbers and the graph around what's happening to you throughout the day. And it's so amazing to see people's faces when I first go over the graph with them and they realize, oh my God, what I feel is actually real. Like I could see it in black and white and color. It is the most amazing feeling that my patients have, and I love it. Okay, so let's go over the 4 main possible results that you might get from this test. There are some variations, but this is how it goes, and I'm going to show you pictures. The first stage is 0. This is what we're supposed to look like and feel like. This is what normal people feel like. And let me show you what it looks like. Let me turn this on real quick. Okay, so this is what a normal person will look like. Like a half moon shape, and this half kind of crescent shape be high in the morning. That's when your cortisol levels are nice and high. You get up feeling refreshed. And then throughout the day, you'll have a slow, consistent slope going down. It never has any severe dips, just a nice slow curve, kind of like that half moon shape, until you're ready to go to bed, at which point your cortisol is nice and low and you have no trouble falling asleep. Now, most of you listening to this are probably thinking, wouldn't it be nice to actually feel this way? And you're right. A stage 0 means that everything is great, and I very rarely see stage 0s because they don't usually come to me. But for those of you who are not seeing this, I want you to know that this kind of moon, this crescent shape that's going on, is green, and all 4 points are in the green curve. Okay, so that's what a 0 looks like. Let's keep moving on to the next possible stage. The next possible stage is a stage 1. This is when you start to overdraw a little bit on your cortisol bank account, but you're not bankrupt yet. So you're not feeling terrible. You might feel some moments of brain fog or anxiety, but it's not debilitating. You're just feeling a little off, a little different than you used to. Most of the day, your cortisol levels are fine, and then there might be one part of the day where you're a little bit more tired, when your adrenals are just not producing enough, but the rest of the day is fine. So let me show you what that looks like. That looks like this. This is a stage 1. And I'll describe it to you guys who are just listening in. So stage 1 is, like I said, you have 3 of the 4 points are in the green. They're where they should be. But 1 point is going to be off. In this graph that I'm showing, there's 1 point around lunchtime that's lower than the green. So this patient feels good in the morning, they're in the green, but then around lunchtime, it goes down lower than it needs to. This is when the patient will feel tired, maybe grab some more coffee, and then they go back to baseline and they start feeling normally energized for the rest of the day. This is the phase 1. Phase 1 patients also doesn't usually come to my office. If they do, they're coming complaining of fatigue. They might come for other things. Stage 1, when it comes to fatigues, generally okay, generally figuring things out. So let's move on to our next person, our phase 2. This is when we start cooking. A person with phase 2 feels underperforming all day, suboptimal all day. Yes, they have a little more energy in the morning than they do at night, but they feel like they are dragging all day. This person is not completely depleted, but if this is you, you're going to feel tired and suboptimal all day. And you might reach for pick-me-ups all day long, like coffee and snacks. You might notice increased anxiety and irritability, increased fatigue, some weight gain, and you might start having trouble falling asleep or getting a good night's sleep, which leads to more fatigue and irritability. Let me show you what that looks like. So stage 2 looks like this. Okay. So stage 2 adrenal fatigue, um, there is still more cortisol in the morning than in the PM, but at no point are they optimal. So this patient, none of the points are in the green crescent moon shape, right? So imagine again, we have this moon curve, and which is the green part. And for those of you who are listening and don't see it, imagine tracing a line right under the curve of the moon, but never actually being in the curve. So it's better in the morning than it is at night, but it is suboptimal all day. This is what a stage 2 looks like. Now we have to move on to our more severest case, which is the stage 3. And those of you who are stage 3ers, you're going to know, you're going to recognize yourself right away. So phase 3ers, you are the most severe. You basically lose the curve. It's like a flat line. You're dragging all day. You wake up exhausted, all day you're exhausted, and you can sleep for hours and you still wake up exhausted. The whole day is just exhausted. And I'm going to show you what that looks like real quick. And then I want to give a quick note about what phase 3ers should definitely not do. So look at this. Phase 3, completely out of the green, almost a flat line. There's almost no difference. Some of my phase 3ers are actually worse than this particular example. It's just flat. The day and the night are almost at the same level of cortisol. These people are dragging all day long. So if you're a phase 3, I just want to say this. If you are one of those people who feel worse after exercise, this is important. That's very classic for phase 3. And it's important because a lot of well-meaning people in your life are telling you, just go exercise. You'll feel fine if you exercise. You'll feel better. And you try and you go. But then after you work out, you can't function. You need to take a nap. You need to recover for 2 or 3 days. This is not because you're lazy. It's because you're depleted. You have no gas to get through the day, let alone to get through a workout. So pushing yourself to exercise when you're a phase 3 actually makes things worse. So I don't want you to push yourself to that. All right, so we covered the 4 phases. Now we have to talk about how do we fix this, right? What do we need to do? Now you might say to yourself, well, this whole thing's about stress, so I guess she's going to say, just lower your stress, but I really can't do that because my life is stressful. I know that. I know your life is stressful. But there are more stressors in your life than what you usually think of as stress. There are some stressors that we actually can control, and if we can control those, it will give the entire system the strength that it needs to manage the stress that we can't control. Let me tell you what I mean. Let me tell you about the stressors that we can control. First and foremost is nutrition. And you might not think of nutrition as a stressor, but if your body is busy dealing with filtering it out, all these crazy processed foods, it's another stressor it has to deal with. And if your food is causing you bloating, discomfort, that's a stressor we need to remove, right? If every meal you're not feeling well and your belly is bloated, that's a stress that we can control. Whereas some of the other stressors we can't. And if the food that you're eating is causing you disease, it's causing diabetes, hypertension, PCOS, and now you're taking medication, again, these are stressors that we can control and we can reverse. Let's reverse it. Let's reverse the disease. Let's get off these medications whenever possible. So that's a stressor we can control. The second one is lack of sleep. Lack of sleep is a huge stressor on the body. If we don't get enough sleep, your cortisol levels get messed up, your adrenal glands work overtime, and things are worse. But you might say, I can't sleep. That's part of the problem. I can't sleep. Well, I did a whole talk on sleep in one of my other episodes. Go find it on YouTube. But just real quick, I just want to say there are still things that you can do to help you sleep. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, if your diet stinks, you're not going to sleep well. That's just your sleep is not going to be on point. If, for example, you like to finish off the day with a super heavy carb-loaded meal, like a big bowl of pasta or rice, and then maybe have a glass of wine, thinking, hey, this is how to end the day. Guess what? You're not going to sleep. You might have heart palpitations. You might wake up at night. You might have weird dreams. And you might think, oh my God, this must be my hormones. No, it's the glass of wine and the bowl of pasta that you just had. So that is a huge component in how you sleep. If you just had Starbucks at 4 p.m. because you ran out of energy and you needed to get that last part of your shift done, guess what? You're not going to sleep. Once again, choices that you made in your nutrition during the day are affecting your sleep. If you watch a suspenseful movie or news or go on social media before bedtime, you won't sleep well. On the other hand, if you eat a light dinner at least 3 hours before bedtime, that's a low carb without alcohol, you'll sleep better. If you stop your caffeine after 12, you'll sleep better. Believe it or not, exercise helps normalize the body's cortisol. When you exercise in the morning, especially if you're outside or have a window where you exercise, it actually starts letting your brain get ready for sleep hours later at night. And like I said, I did a whole episode on this, but I want to start getting you thinking that there are things you can do to help you sleep, and that is a stressor that we can manage. And of course, there are some supplements that are really specific to helping your adrenals. So some of the more common supplements are vitamin C, vitamin B, magnesium, vitamin D, omega-3. This should be on everyone's list for all things, not just adrenal, but definitely helps with adrenal. But I want to talk about two types of supplements that are really specific for adrenals. One is called adaptogens. Adaptogens are herbs that help the body adapt to stress. Ashwagandha and rhodiola are really well-known adaptogens. And of course, it's not for everyone, but you should start looking into them. And if it affects you adversely, don't take them. But for most people, they really help with stress. And then there's another kind of supplement called glandulars. And glandulars are a category of supplements that are derived from adrenal glands of animals. So of course, if you're vegan, vegetarian, this is not for you. But for anyone who's not averse to using this, the theory behind adrenal glandulars is that they provide the nutrients, the compounds that can support the human adrenal glands because they're coming from adrenal glands, and they're very helpful in boosting energy. So let's just do a quick recap of where we're at. If you're experiencing fatigue or any of the symptoms associated with adrenal fatigue, first, always go to your PCP. Make sure it's nothing else. Never, ever, ever, ever self-diagnose. Then, if they tell you you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you, don't get frustrated. That's great news. Your next step is to either work with me and my team or find another functional medicine provider that can test you, that can provide the saliva testing to find out what phase of adrenal fatigue you're in. And then you're going to start fixing it. You're going to eliminate the foods and the habits that worsen the adrenal fatigue. You're going to add the good foods. You're going to add some supplements. It is not an easy or quick fix. This takes months, sometimes years, but it is possible. And as always, if you want to work with me and my team, this is how you reach us. It's basically the new method spelled with a K on every platform, except for Twitter, because I talk too much. And shoot us an email or a message anywhere you want, any platform that works for you. But whether you decide to work with us or not, I hope this video helped you. And I'm glad that you're here because you always knew there was a better way. I hope this helps. I'll talk to you guys next week. See you then.